Hello, hello. Hey, what's up, everybody? How are you guys doing? Welcome to this new segment I like to call "A View from the Couch." With y'all want to see the baby? What's she doing? What's she doing? Sleeping. So, I got you on the cell phone right now, so she ain't gonna be doing no editing, or anything like that. She's tired. She's tired. We went for a walk, but welcome back to the Horrible Show. Sorry for the long, drawn-out introductions, but I also like to have the show not only horror movie pickups, but uh, our lives, horror fans' lives, within collecting these horror movies. So I wanted to give a rundown of my favorite horror movies as a kid. I got a stack of Blu-rays right here. These aren't going to be in any specific order. I think my number one choice, or I'll do, because I'm going to go over my favorite movie. But that one is I'm gonna leave for number one. And I might have some honorable mentions right before we exit stage left on here. But yeah, so all right, let me just give you a little background. I'm sure I've talked about this a lot of times before, but all right. So I was born in '91. I am 28 right now. I'll be 29 in May. So I was born in '91. So for most of my childhood, like before I was 10, we had VHS, right? VHS was the big format, right? Nobody was really doing beta. That part was over, and not very many people I knew were doing Laserdisc. I knew it was still big in Japan for quite some time, even into DVD's life. But yeah, so people were just on the VHS board until about. I remember my dad. See, my parents were split. I remember my dad got his first DVD player probably in 1998, 97 or 98. See, a big thing is that people going out and buying DVD players was a little bit more rare, but to tell you the truth, the thing that sold DVD, and maybe I'm just talking out of my butt here, but was the PlayStation 2. Because I believe that the DVD player got into more houses, and I believe that's still the highest selling video game system, if I'm not wrong. But if you could look into the PS2, the PS2 had an amazing DVD player on it, and not only it brought it into the households for everybody. So, but that was a little bit later. I think that's more. I don't think at my mom's house we didn't get a PS2 until like 2001, 2002. The PS2 had been out for about a year or two, because they were very. It's just like nowadays, they're very expensive when they first dropped. But yeah, so around that time I was probably like 10 or 11. Like DVD was like really, like in 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. So I remember getting DVDs just at my dad's house. He had a whole bunch of DVDs. I want to say the first two DVDs he ever got were Hannibal and New Jack City. New Jack City is still a great movie. Hannibal, it's okay. It's definitely not as good. I can't believe they would make a movie Hannibal after making Silence of the Lambs. Like, it's incredible. It doesn't hold up at all, in my opinion. But yeah, so I remember I really started getting into collecting DVDs probably like 2002, 2003. So I was like 11, 12. A big thing for me at the time was I could really go anywhere and buy them. My parents were great for getting me movies on birthdays or Christmas, just and stuff like that. Um, and they were my parents were great with buying whatever. Like, it wouldn't be anything to be like, hey, like, can I get Friday the 13th Part 6? Because I don't have it. They'd be like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we'll get that. which is awesome. Like that's one thing I I hate that kids. I feel like if a child knows right from wrong and knows that you're not supposed to be going around killing people with a machete, like go ahead and let them watch the movies, man. Like come on, you know. But I digress. And one, I don't have any kids, at least not yet. So I don't know if my thoughts are going to change on that, but that's how I feel at the moment. And before I get too rambly, I'm getting I've come across the path of ramble, and I've walked on it, and I've subjected you to it. So let me just go ahead and start with my collection, and then I can dive more into. Okay, okay. See, I got these in a random order, so every time I see them, I'm like, oh man. Okay. So the first one we got here is a little film called Fright Night. I remember seeing Fright Night for the very first time on AMC. It was summer vacation. I remember they played this thing during the day. They played it probably in like June or July, probably like 10 times. And I taped it off of TV, and it was awesome because I was so used to at the time. So this was probably like late 90s at the time, like the vampire movies you had as a kid. It's like what I had seen before, like I had seen The Lost Boys and like Interview with the Vampire, maybe John Carpenter's Vampire at that time, because I remember seeing that with my dad pretty vividly. But I remember because this was a little bit more it was a little bit more classy is not the word, but it's a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. But I just thought it was a great vampire story, and it just became one of my favorites. And I feel like every couple months I put this in just because I can't get enough, you know. So Fright Night, and like I said, these are not in any particular order except for the very last one. All right. And I know you already got a little bit of my thoughts on this, my whole thoughts on the series actually, because I have a video. And if you haven't watched that video, check it out. Check it out. It's my Is It Worth It Halloween Scream Factory box set. The first Halloween, like, it's hard because so many people have talked about these movies. It's such a classic. It is creepy. The music, the mood, the way that John Carpenter lit all the shadows, and like it's either really really gray or really really blue or just black. It's the cinematography is amazing as well. It I get the same feeling every time I watch this movie, and that's hard for a horror movie to do. I feel like I never get bored with it. I think people say that the dialogue-y scenes in the beginning of the movie kind of drag, but I never feel that way. I watch it every Halloween. I at least watch it one time before Halloween, like in October, along with Halloween 3. I usually watch the second one too. I found myself I'll watch the theatrical cut of Rob Zombie's Halloween. My first impressions of this movie was my grandparents. Like, I remember going to all my family lived in New Jersey, right? So every summer I think we'd spend like 2 weeks in New Jersey because I have 2 older brothers, and so we would go up to Jersey and we'd spend a couple weeks with our cousins and stuff like that, because we were the only family that migrated down to Virginia, right? So I remember going through like they had a whole bunch of tapes in the living room, and we used to hit Blockbuster all the time. I remember me and my middle brother would always get like Mortal Kombat and Last Action Hero, because those movies, if you've never seen either of those movies, they're so clutch, both of them. The original Mortal Kombat and Last Action Hero, thoroughly recommend. They're in all their cheesy glory. It's fantastic. But long story longer, my grandmother and my grandfather had a tape of Halloween. Like, they went out and bought a tape of Halloween, hiding. And I guess it was my uncle's, because my uncle was living with them for a long time, like post adulthood, you know. So we were like, holy crap, there's a, you know, because of course my grandmother wouldn't let us rent anything, and so we'd just pop in their copy of Halloween and just watch that like 8 times. But it's classic. It is a bona fide classic, and you can always. It seems like no matter what, it the year, you can always watch it on TV too. That's what I like. You can always kind of catch it. You know, some movies you can't really catch all that much on TV because they just won't show it. You know. All right, and this one's a big one. This one's a big one for me. Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead, and I am going to part the Red Sea of horror movie fans here and saying I prefer the first Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2. This movie scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. I remember, I don't know if you've watched my very first video. I talk about my dad. We'd always go to Blockbuster. Always, because I'd see my dad every other weekend. We'd go to Blockbuster and he'd be like, yeah, man, pick out whatever you want. And I can vividly remember saying, I'm like, oh, what's Evil Dead? And he was like, oh, you've never seen Evil Dead? And hindsight, I'm like, dude, I'm like 8. No, of course I've never seen Evil Dead. And he would do that with all the movies. I was like, bro, you've never seen The Exorcist? I'm like, no, dude, because I'm a child. You know, I've never seen The Exorcist. But Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead, I remember being so enthralled with this movie. I bought, after we watched it from Blockbuster, I bought they had the special VHS. If you've ever seen VHSs of the Evil Dead, they've had, of course they had like the original release, but during my heyday, they had the 4 additional covers of the Anchor Bay late 90s releases. So you could get like the 4 special covers, and man, I played the crap out of that movie when I bought it on VHS when I was a kid. Because you could get VHSs from Blockbuster, you can get them used for pretty good, you know. If you were a kid, you save up a couple birthdays, do a couple mow the lawn, stuff like that. You could crush some VHS. And yeah, I had that. I had Evil Dead 2, I had Army of Darkness. But if I could, I would put Evil Dead 2 along with one of the in this list. But I figured I'd put the first one because the first one was what I saw first, you know. But I've probably seen each of them equally, and I love them equally. But this movie, like, if you're still not ready, like if you have this movie on, if you're playing on your phone, and then if you kind of look up, it'll get you a little bit. It's still creepy. It still holds up really a lot for me. Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, and of course, like growing up, when you realize like how low budget Evil Dead was. If you ever read the 2 Bruce Campbell books, they're fantastic. If you ever get a chance to read them, I think it's Hail to the Chin, and then I can't remember what the second one's called, but yeah, they're great. The first book has pretty in-depth making of Evil Dead 2, like 2 as well. You know, TOO 2. But trying to see what I want to go to next. Yeah, let's do this one. John Carpenter's The Thing. This movie is so important. I think it's so important to cinema. I think everybody should be obligated to see this in middle school. They should just show this to people. This movie is so good. I remember growing up, I had a VHS tape of this. That was just chilling in my house. You know, I'm pretty sure I got it. It was my dad's. And I live with my mom, so that's what I'm talking about. Like, there was a VHS copy at my mom's house. And it's just such a good movie. Like, I can't believe it got panned when it came out because it's so perfect in so many ways. The score, the setting, the acting, the suspense, the isolation, the claustrophobia, the paranoia. It's crazy. I know Quentin Tarantino tried to do the same thing with The Hateful Eight, but I don't think he did it. I don't think with the whoever poisoned the coffee. I know he was trying to go for like anybody could have been the person that poisoned the coffee in the Hateful Eight, but I know he was trying to go for like feelings of the thing. Like in this movie, if you've never seen it before, like I remember when I was a kid, like before I'd seen it like a million times. You know, you've seen it once and then you wait a couple years and be like, oh, let me watch this again. Just I can't remember it. You don't know who the thing is. You can't remember who the thing is. You're like, man, you know it's not Kurt Russell, but you're like, man, oh yeah, is that guy the thing? It really could be any of these people. They could be the thing. And I've never watched a movie that was like that. I've never watched a movie where you never knew like who was the monster or not. Like it's fantastic. And I will say something about the Scream Factory released Blu-ray is that for the longest time, even the DVDs, for a long time, like this movie was so dark, like the print. I remember watching, if you watch this on VHS or if you watched it on like the Sci-Fi Channel or AMC like 10, 15 years ago, the print that they used was so dark. Like the scene where the thing is taking over all the dogs like in the kennel, like it was so dark you could barely see it. And I'm just glad that they have they just went back and restored everything so you can see it a whole lot more. Like at the time you could only see like the thing's face open. You know what I'm talking about? The one shot where it's like and the face opens and stuff like that. That was really the only thing that you could see. It was the only thing that was light enough to like comprehend. But now then when you watch it, you see all these veins and you see all these crazy special effects. But you know, I'm just so glad. I've had this Blu-ray for maybe a year and a half, and I probably watched it like 10 times. Fantastic. Oh, my stack is about to fall over here because I'm doing it on my chair. See this? She was up for a second. I don't know if it showed it on the camera, but oh my God, did I show you the last one? Did you see it? Did you see it? Either way. Okay, well these, you know, if I'm going up this alley, I'm going up a certain I'm going down a certain path. This might tell you what my number one is, but and I've said it on the channel before, but we have Lucio Fulci's Zombie, aka Zombie 2, aka Italian masterpiece of sleazy 79 sleazy kind of like island zombie massacre, you know. I was so obsessed with Dawn of the Dead when I was a child. Absolutely, like 100, like not, like when you're obsessed with something and it's like not cool. Like there's one thing to be like a nerd and you're just like, oh, you're like that guy really likes that, or that girl really likes, you know, oh, that girl really likes The Walking Dead. That's cool, you know. But like, no, bro, I was not cool. I was obsessed with Dawn of the Dead, and it was out of print when I was a kid. Like, even though it's out of print now, I feel like that movie's gonna stay out of print. And then, but we're not talking about Dawn of the Dead. But this is kind of a segue because this was the unofficial Dawn of the Dead 2, the sequel. And I just remember being on stupid internet forums and talking to people and just be like, what's the sequel to Dawn of the Dead? What is Fulci? What is Zombie? I need to watch this. And probably at the time where I was about probably like 12, Anchor Bay was destroying the DVD game. They were putting out DVDs that had never been released. You can never find these VHSs anywhere. Like you could get Argento, you can get Fulci movies. They were doing. It was a pretty unbelievable time in the States for DVD. And I would tell you, like, even if you go on YouTube and watch other collectors, like some people still hold on to their Anchor Bay DVD collections because they were so important at the time. Like you couldn't get these movies anywhere. Like I remember listening to an interview with Eli Roth, director Eli Roth, and he was like, dude, I would have some of these movies you'd have like fourth generation VHS. And if you don't know what that means I'm gonna just put this down. But fourth generation VHS is like, all right, so you have your original VHS with your original VHS master, right? So somebody would make a copy of that, and once you make a copy of something, like the quality, it goes down. That's just how tape is. But so it's like you're making a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy until like things get all blurry, and then you could barely hear anything. You're like, dude, is somebody getting stabbed, or is somebody eating a sandwich? You don't know what's going on. But yeah, I remember him saying that it was so hard to get these movies. Excuse me. But I will also say it was really hard overseas. I'm sure it was even harder because all the things I've either read or listened to said that you couldn't find an uncut copy of most movies anywhere overseas for the longest time. Like, you either get a cut copy or confiscated video nasty copy. You know, you don't want to be caught red-handed with these illegal movies. So and even during, I feel bad because even during the time like that, what I was talking about, the Anchor Bay DVD time, that people overseas were still getting hosed. They weren't getting many of these releases unless they were getting them imported, to which I hope they were. But now they have Arrow Video, and now they have so many different, they have 88 Films over there. They have so many different companies that I would say, other than like Shout Factory and Scream Factory, I know Arrow Video has a US label, but I think the UK and overseas has us beat on, like, we have Vinegar Syndrome and Code Red and stuff like that, but I don't know. Arrow UK and 88 Films, they're putting out the heat. So I definitely don't think they're getting slighted in any way. They might even have the upper hand when it comes to releases now, which they deserve, I think. Yeah. George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. So, obsessed with this movie as well. Actually, the whole first Living Dead, the first three of what they used to call the Living Dead trilogy. I remember, I'm sure there's going to be kids watching this YouTube video right now. Excuse me, I'm getting yawn. I'm sorry if that made you yawn too. Wow. But yeah, I was alive. I was alive when it was just a trilogy. Before Diary of the Dead came out, or before Land of the Dead came out, and then Diary, and then Survival. It was just the original trilogy, almost like Star Wars, but with zombies. But I remember, man, I bought a used VHS copy of Dawn of the Dead from my local record store down the street. I'd walk there every day and look at their movies and music. And I know after like a month, they're like, is this kid serious? Will this kid leave us alone? Because I'd roll in there, and it was a record store where you could, like, it sold mostly used stuff. So they had CD players set up, because you could go in there, you could listen to, like, I would go in there and listen to like 5 albums. I'd like listen to the Black Album, Metallica, all the way through, and then I'd go get like Pink Floyd The Wall, which is like a double album, and then listen to that all the way through. They're like, dude, this kid has been in here for like 8 hours. He's not buying anything. He's gotta go. But it's good memories, you know what I'm saying? But I bought clamshell copies of the director's cut Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, the Anchor Bay releases, because Day of the Dead was loosely out of print. I say that it was hard to find a copy of Day of the Dead on DVD until I was about like 13 or 14. Like, when I was, until I became like a hardcore teenager, could I really get a copy of Day of the Dead? And it's really like, it's the DVD copies that are floating around of Day of the Dead. That's what we got. The double Anchor Bay, double the fold out sleeve. I don't know what I'm talking about, but you know, if you go on eBay, you can find them all day, every day. But yeah, this movie is fantastic, and I would just watch Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead just back to back. I'd just obsessed. I'd draw pictures. Like, I can't draw. Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Like, I'd try to write zombie like novels, and I could barely read. Like, horrible. Yeah, try to do everything. Obsessed. I would like be like, oh, Richard P. Rubenstein, the dude that produced Dawn of the Dead. I'd be like, what other movies, you know? And then you start to hear about movies called Martin, Night Riders, Creep Show, and then you're like, oh, I know, I've heard of this name Stephen King before. And then you start to look into Stephen King, and everything kind of branches off of each other, you know. Joe Pilato, rest in peace, the guy that plays Rhodes in here. I remember one day I was watching Wishmaster, and he was the dude that drops the crate, like the drunk dude that spills the coffee and drops the crate with Robert Englund right there. He was like the entrepreneur, you know, the dude from the museum. And you just like, everything branches off one another. Movies, especially horror movies, because they're all in the same, you know, this all cinematic universe, all of them, you know, because, and then Robert Englund, he said Nightmare on Elm Street, and then 976 Evil, yeah. And then you just get caught up and you watch all these movies, and then hopefully you try to find a copy, and then you just enjoy them. Most of the time you enjoy everything that you see. But yeah, Day of the Dead. I know I didn't really talk about this movie in general. Fantastic. Bub, amazing. The special features on all these are amazing. When the guts were unplugged that they were using for the gore scenes, Tom Savini, and then when Rhodes gets torn apart at the end, they're all sour and spoiled, and they smell horrible. I think about that every time I watch it now. Oh, gotta wet the whistle. Don't got the thunder, got the perky. Oh, because I had to hit that food line. Walmart's getting too crazy around here. Have y'all been to Walmart lately? It's just with the quarantine and the virus, it's just getting too many people. It's just getting too crazy. In Virginia, our food lines are pretty chill. Like, you can roll into a food line. There's only going to be like 7 people there at one time. So I went to food line today after work. Brown, 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 brown. Shining. Had a VHS copy of this at my dad's house. He recorded it off of HBO. And I probably watched this movie at his house, probably, no lie, 60 times. Probably 60 times. In the span of like 10 years, you know. Which, does 60 times, does that sound like a lot? That's a lot. Watching a movie, seeing a movie more than like 20 times. But this movie is so good. I just remember I just kept on popping it in, you know. And there's a time where this movie wasn't as revered as it is today. Like, The Shining, like, people give it a lot of love now. Like, back in the day, I feel like it was just like, oh yeah, The Shining, that's just another horror movie that was good back in the day. But now it's really getting love, like it should. It's a perfect. I feel like it's a perfect movie. I think it is better than the book. I've read the Stephen King book. I love Stephen King. I've talked about the Dead Zone book. Maybe my favorite book of all time, the book on Misery, fantastic. Both of those movies, Misery and The Dead Zone, amazing. But I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I've probably read. He's probably got close to 80 books now. I might be wrong, could be more than that. But I know I've read at least half of them. They're great. So, but he took out Stanley Kubrick took out a lot of the silliness. Like, I thought, like, if you ever watched the other Shining, like the miniseries that came out in the 90s, like, then you'll know, like, it added in back some of the silliness, like the hedge animals. I think it's a little silly. Like, the maze is a lot more fitting, and it's a lot more visceral and understanding and dark and twisted. and just scary in general. Jack Nicholson, I don't care that people say that he acts like he was crazy from the very beginning, but you know, I don't know. I grew up in a household, you know. Sometimes you thought your parental figures were already, they were like right on the edge. I don't know if you guys ever lived how your families were, but my family's pretty old school. Like one little thing could have tipped it over the edge, and if it was a haunted hotel, somewhat feeding you booze and giving you ideas and making you paranoid, it could have been made me really think, made me really scared. It was a very scary idea, but Shelley Duvall, her face, like everything in this movie is so picturesque. Like you could draw, it's so animated, you could draw like a cartoon of it and it would be like the exact same. Like everybody's face is oddly gorgeous and animated and cartoonish, and it's like a caricature of like of normal people, and it's oddly fitting, you know. And it's so isolated, and the hotel's so big. It's just great. Like I will watch this so many more times. I can't wait. I think the first day one, when I get my 4K player, my 4K TV, definitely gonna be The Shining. I cannot wait. That Blu-ray transfer is not bad though, because I remember I was rolling with a DVD copy of The Shining that was it. It was like weirdly pan and scan. It wasn't even like full widescreen, and the picture was stretched. It was a horrible DVD. I still have it, but I don't know what the hell they were thinking when they put that out. All right. Right here I have a Nightmare on Elm Street collection, but the most important one for me in here is Dream Warriors. I've rented this movie, Dream Warriors, the third one, so many times from Blockbuster. It was like every week it'd be like, get a new movie, but you're also getting Dream Warriors too. So like if you had a chance, my mom would be like, hey, you could pick out two, you know, your brother, because me and my middle brother are close in age, and my oldest brother he's 6 years apart from me. So he was living with my dad at the time. So me and my middle brother, he would roll in, he would get the video games, and I would get the movies. And I say, God bless him, because whatever stupid stuff I would rent, he'd be like, oh yeah, down. You know, it'd be like, I'd watch him play a bunch of video games, like classic video games, like PlayStation era, you know, N64 era. I'd watch him own some video gamage, and then we'd pop in whatever I rented. It was a great dynamic, let me tell you. So, and Dream Warriors, like the first time I watched it, I remember in my bedroom, I stood at the doorway while it was on the TV because I was so afraid. Like my door was open. I remember my mom was vacuuming. I had a downstairs room. My mom was vacuuming in the living room, which I was near. I was right near the living room, outside in my doorway. My brother's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing, dude. I'm just watching this movie. He's like, why don't you just go in your room? I was like, I can't, you know, I just can't. You know, I was trying to make up excuses and stuff like that. But it's just a great memory I got of that. And then probably about 6 or 7 months later, my dad bought me the VHS, or not, the DVD collection of all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, which was like, then I watched all of them a million times. Like, and it took me a long time. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm probably killing y'all right now with those yawns. But hey, work today. Keeks is already there. We're due. After this, get some sleep. Enjoy some rest. Enjoy yourself. Hit the pillow. You know, ain't nothing like some sleep. Maybe, I don't know about y'all, but sleep is amazing. Write in the comments. You like some sleep? I like some sleep. It took me a long time to upgrade these from my DVD set, because the DVD set was great when it came out, but it's nice to have these in high definition. I wonder, now I'm starting to think. I'm like, I wonder when they're gonna do a 4K. You know, I wonder if they'll do a 4K of the Friday the 13th and the Halloweens and the Nightmare on Elm Streets, which they really should. You know, I know everybody still is worried about that Halloween box set, whether it's worth it or not. But come on, put out put out some 4K. I know they're already doing they already did the first John Carpenter's Halloween 4K. But yeah, put it out. I'm not gonna even show it because All right, let's go through this before I put all of you guys to sleep. Okay. The original The Exorcist. One of the first movies my dad, me as a sentient human being, like aware of my life and surroundings. One of the first movies my dad showed me, The Exorcist. I was probably like 7 or 8. Probably not the best move in parenting, but he did the greatest thing for me. It got me into horror. This Evil Dead, like everything that my dad was like, hey dude, you gotta watch this. Aliens, the sequel to Alien. He's like, bro, you gotta. These movies are amazing. You gotta watch these movies. So I was like, okay, I'm like, all right, like, is it scary? He was like, yeah, they're really scary. I'm like, oh, well, okay, we're gonna watch them. And he's like, yeah. Are you ready? But hilarious hindsight now. But The Exorcist. Every time I watch this movie, I watch what they call the extended director's cut. When I was a kid, they called it the version never seen, because they had a special edition DVD that came out, and they re-released it in theaters. I believe that's the year 2000 that they did that. 2001. Yeah, because I remember seeing the trailers on TV. Like, it's crazy, like, being a kid, a movie that came out in 1973, and then in 2001, them showing trailers on TV, like, go see this movie in theaters, and I wish I would have. I really wish I would have. A lot of these movies I wish I would have seen on the big screen, but, what can you do? Can't do anything about it. But yeah, I love this movie so much. I always watch the director's cut. Fangoria, I know I've been bringing up Fangoria a lot, is they're like Exorcist. I think they're promoting a set of blogs or a set of podcasts, and it said Exorcist is not the scariest movie of all time. I'm like, yeah, when it comes to people being scared, that's pretty subjective, but I will say it's the most important horror movie ever made, especially for its time, because I feel like in 1973, this was a real deal horror movie. There hadn't been anything like this before, like special effects, things like that. Like, of course, you were getting into your grindhouse, like exploitation, like 70s. You got some Hitchcock movies that were out, but this was real deal. It is real deal. Scary too. Like, it's a horrifying movie. Like, still, like, will it scare me now? But I remember after the movie cut off, I was like, Dad, what the hell did we just watch, bro? Like, what did you do to me, bro? And it was just amazing, and I was hooked ever since. And it took me so long. I still haven't watched all of the sequel, the second one, but I love Exorcist 3 or Legion or whatever you'd like to call it. I love that movie. But I keep on, when everybody tells you that The Exorcist 2 is garbage, and then I kind of put it up to my whole life growing up. Everybody told me that The Godfather Part 3 was garbage. And then I was like, man, it can't be that bad. Because I'm pretty lenient when it comes to just movies in general. I feel like if you're a horror movie fan, you're pretty lenient. Because when it comes to like special effects and stuff like that and low budgets, you're cool with it. You kind of just take it out of your head and you just try to find the best part of the movie. but I didn't care for The Godfather 3 at all when I watched it. I was like, watch this one be my favorite out of all of it because everybody hates it. But so, being that everybody was kind of right in my opinion about The Godfather 3, that's why I had never watched The Exorcist 2, The Heretic. All right, y'all. Last but not least, my favorite movie of all time, the most influential movie on me, Dawn of the Dead. George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Rented this with my dad for the first time. Me, my dad, and my two older brothers watched it. I was so trapped in this movie. Like, I could not believe what I was watching, and I couldn't get enough. Like, I almost stole this from the Blockbuster at my mom's house. Like, that's how bad I wanted this movie. I almost stole it from, like, I was like, dude, how can I sneak out of this? I don't recommend stealing anything ever. But I remember being like 10 years old because it was out of print. Like, I was like, dude, my mom hates me right now because I keep on renting the same movie. I was like, how can I steal it and then make her not pay money for it anymore? I was like, how can I steal this freaking movie from Blockbuster? I'm like, well, they got the things where if you leave with the movie, you know, it's gonna make the alarm go off, or it's gonna buzz when you go past it. And I was legitly trying to steal this movie, but you know, eventually, probably by the time I was, like I said, I got a VHS copy of it used at the music store that I always used to walk to. So then my whole thievery ideas didn't come into full play. Thank everybody that I didn't do anything stupid like that just to get this movie. But yeah, so I got me a clamshell copy of the extended director's cut. Director's cut is what they used to call it back in the day. Today they call it the Cannes cut, the longest version of Dawn of the Dead that you can buy. Other than if you go on YouTube, you can watch an extended mall hours cut, which is basically a culmination of all the different versions of Dawn of the Dead into the longest one that you can watch possible. Which I still think they should put out a Blu-ray of that, along with what Second Sight is doing. But it's really, you know, we always have YouTube. I know it doesn't cost us anything to go on YouTube and watch it. So, you know, and it's crazy because I was watching the extended mall hours cut, and it looked amazing. I don't know if it was necessarily 4K, but this DVD or this Blu-ray is overhyped. Like, the picture quality, like beyond high definition, it's not beyond anything. Beyond high definition, I'd much rather watch the Blu-ray, or much rather watch the DVD. I have the Ultimate Edition DVDs over there. Like, if anybody's trying to shell out like $50 for this Blu-ray, don't do it because it doesn't look great. You are way better off spending that same money on the 4-disc DVD and you get all the cuts too. Yeah, so just do that. I highly recommend it because you can, if you really want to watch it in HD that's better than this, you can go on YouTube and watch it in better quality, I feel. So I think people just want this for the collection, but just stick with the DVDs. I would say just get the regular DVD release, the DivMax, whatever they call them. But yeah, I was absolutely obsessed, and then, you know, man, at the time, so I had the director's cut, right? And, you know, there was like, I feel like I'm most used to that cut now, the director's cut. So anytime I hear, let's say if I watch the theatrical cut of Dawn of the Dead, and there's a lot of like music cues, like, oh man, like, I'm like, I keep on forgetting how much Goblin is in this version, you know? Because in the director's cut, there's not a lot of music. Like it's empty music wise a lot of the time. There's like a lot of the library tracks, but it's very like it's I don't know. It almost makes you feel a little bit more like you're there and less like a movie. But when it comes to like being theatrical and stuff like that, like when you watch the theatrical cut, like you get these loud like bum bum, you know what I'm talking about. With the score, the Goblin score, I think it sounds great. And I'm just every time I watch Dawn of the Dead, whether it's like the theatrical cut or the zombie cut, which I don't mind watching at all, even though it's kind of sped up. You get these music cues that kind of like you're like, oh hell yeah, because I'm a big music guy too. Like uh, Deep Red, Tenebrae, like all the Argento movies got the banging music. Zombies got a great soundtrack. And Neo Morricone for The Thing is pretty, even though it's simple, it's very Pink Floyd, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, boom, boom, you know. Um, and that's what Carpenter said he got some inspiration from too, because it's like Carpenter and Morricone on that. Um, Tubular Bells from The Exorcist. Maybe that's all Dawkins from A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Trying to remember all these movies. And of course, John Harrison on Day of the Dead. I got that on my freaking my iPhone. Like I'll go walk with Kiki and then have like the Day of the Dead score come on, along with like whatever you're listening to, like a lot of the weird stuff like a Genesis or Rob Zombie or Megadeth or what are some indie bands, Arctic Monkeys, or they're not really indie anymore, but yeah, it's like you'd be rocking out. You got your like kick butt rock mix, and then you throw in some Day of the Dead soundtrack or some Goblin, bro. Yeah, it's awesome. Evil Dead doesn't have to, not a very noticeable soundtrack. Like it's kind of more like ambient sounds and stuff like that. Join Us stuff. Halloween, amazing soundtrack. And I think Fright Night's got a great soundtrack too. Maybe that's all, maybe that's why I like these movies so much. They all got some great music in there too. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead. It's been a little while since I watched it. I'm holding out for the second sight releases. I cannot wait. I'm gonna get the double, triple, super crunch wrap, Baconator edition of whatever they're trying to sell me. I don't own 4K. I'm gonna buy like 5 copies of the Blu-ray and then 5 copies of the 4Ks and just sleep with them on my bed because it's been so long and it's been out of print for so long. I'm gonna buy so many copies they're gonna be disposable. So I'm gonna watch it and then just throw it away and then open a new copy and put it in. And I'm gonna watch it every day. But I cannot wait. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be great. But those were the top 10 movies that influenced me as a human, as a child, as a man. Keek says, hey, if you like this video, please remember to like, comment, or subscribe. You don't have to, but it'd be cool. Then I know if you're liking these videos or not. I think I have some more content on the way. It's hard for me to do pickups. I was gonna do a lot of Goodwill pickups in between like actual like Arrow and Scream Factory, but being that we're in a quarantine, my Goodwill pickups are pretty out. But I got some good ideas for stuff. I might delve a little bit deeper into Dawn of the Dead here later. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about that movie. That movie's not done with us, So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. It has been 49 minutes that I thought it was only going to be a 20-minute video because I ramble. Keek says good night. Get some sleep. Tell people you love them. Work hard. Do your thing. Be safe. If you see somebody coughing, hit them with your elbow. Because you want to get nothing. These people are sick. People need to wash their hands. People aren't washing their hands enough. Because I see them. Tell them to wash their hands.